Welcome to the ICT Newscast. I'm Shirley Snavy. Today we'll look at some of our stories that continue to inspire, inform, and empower Indigenous communities around the world. In Montana, Salish language teachers are shifting from preservation to revitalization, bringing their words back into everyday life. Here's more from our partners at the University of Montana School of Journalism.
Christina Mays has been training to become a language instructor for 15 years and is now one of the main teachers at the Longhouse in St. Ignatius, Montana. She teaches a Salish language curriculum that is now being used in classrooms all over the Pacific Northwest.
Everyone learns differently, and so you try to reach each one of your students. Some are hands-on, and so I like to build those relationships with them and get to know them first, and then we go from there.
People attend the classes every week to learn Salish and are encouraged to use the language in everyday life. The program manager of the Salish Kalispe Culture Committee, Melanie Sandoval, says they are rewording language preservation. She would rather we call it language revitalization.
So that's why I think it's revitalization versus preserve, to put it on a shelf, to keep it somewhere safe so nobody bothers it. Which we need to do that too, but we also need to be able to make sure it comes back into our families and keep that alive.
Sandoval says she still learns new things about the language from her elders that she hopes to be able to pass on to younger generations. Reporting for the ICT Newscast from the homelands of the Salish, Kalispe, and Kasonka people, I'm Leilehua with the University of Montana School of Journalism in Missoula.
Henries tells stories through images, song, and soul. From his home in the woods, he teaches us that creativity is a gift, and so are we. I met Henries at the turn of the century at the Skamitsune Powwow in Connecticut. I was covering the event for the Native American radio stations. Through Facebook, we've kept in touch. I finally caught up with him at home in the woods.
Our internet is not the greatest where we live, which is way out in the woods, just so you'll know.
I know that. I can tell. But isn't it nice to be able to live out in the woods?
Absolutely. I wouldn't have it any other way, and neither would my family.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been out here on this piece of property for 30 years, and we have bears and moose and deer and all manner of birds that come and visit, and it's nice.
What inspires you to do this work?
The work that I think you might be speaking about can be put under the umbrella of creativity. Each tool, whether it's music or cooking or writing or photography, fills a niche in the place where words fail, if that makes any sense. So sometimes it's easy for me to articulate something using words, but not to paint an accurate picture of it. So that's where my photography comes in. Or on the other hand, I might not be able to, again, find adequate language, and playing the music that I play works well for that. Or cooking a meal for someone. This song called Thanksgiving. You may have heard it at Skamitsune, I don't know, but it's one of my really old songs, and I made this song to remind me of the importance of the gifts that we have continually every day. Things like being able to see, which I'm losing my vision, so I'm really mindful of that, and being able to hear, and that's going as well. Being able to smell and taste and move and feel. I would encourage young people, but people in general, to explore who they are, all aspects of who they are, and to find ways to say, this is me, and I am happy with me. Um, it's easy in our world today to look at what somebody else is doing or what society wants us to be like or to look like or sound like, and then to be discouraged when we're not able to meet those those standards. But I would say that's hogwash. You know, be be you. And again, I think that's for all ages. Sierra's my daughter who just left. We were invited to. Do you know Matika Wilbur's work?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So she's here in New England, and we were invited to spend time with her. She took photographs of both of us. After that, on my way home, I stopped at this great bird watching place to take some photographs. And I stopped. There was an older woman sitting on a bench, and I said hi and smiled, and I said, "How are you?" And she just went, "Old." And I congratulated her on that. I said, "That's wonderful. Imagine the other possibilities. Like maybe you haven't gotten old." And her eyes opened wide, and she said, "Yeah, that's so true."
Ganabachwi Minogishiga Noongam. Perhaps today will be a good day. Ganabachwi Minogishiga Noongam. The word Ganabach is talking about maybe or perhaps. We is a future tense. Mino talking about something good. And Gishigad means day. And then our word Noongam is today. Putting it all together. Ganabachwi Minogishiga Noongam. Perhaps today will be a good day.
Hawaiian history meets experimental opera. A Hawaiian composer reimagines imprisonment as power through sound, song, and community.
Leilehua is a new opera set in 1895 when the last queen of Hawaii, Leilehua, was imprisoned in Iolani Palace for the better part of a year. She was imprisoned in the palace for allegedly supporting movement to take back the kingdom after the overthrow that had happened 2 years previous. During this time when she was imprisoned in the palace, she wasn't able to communicate with people very much, but her captors thought that there were a few things that were kind of like craft that they felt were innocuous. Working on a quilt with her companions that was called the crazy quilt, and that's a specific style of quilting from that era. Working with flowers, getting flowers every day from people outside that were being brought in, and composing. The opera itself is about Indigenous resilience and honoring Leilehua ability to move forward and preserve language and culture through her own music. And so I wanted to make sure that as I build this opera project, that's also creating sustainability and resilience for Native artists.
The subject of your project, The Queen, is a storied life. And we know quite a bit about her. I mean, even me here in Nebraska, I know who she is and the legacy that she's led. Why was this important for you to tell her story?
I was interested in telling it specifically in this way as an opera because Leilehua was writing an opera. She was a composer and she expressed herself through music. And especially in the specific period of her life that I'm writing about in the opera, the imprisonment, she was able to communicate with the outside world and she was able to survive and continue with composition, with this artistic practice that she had. I wanted to tell it in this way to honor the kind of expression that she was, the medium of expression, even though my style of writing is different, and to kind of also shed light on how incredible her work was as an artist and how she had at the time practiced radical Indigenous contemporaneity with her own compositions. And so I think showing how that through thread and showing the way that she was able to do that with her compositions honors her work in, I feel, a true way with her own words. That was really important to me in terms of uplifting her work through this other lens, in this contemporary lens, and showing how contemporary and how radical it was that she was combining these styles, combining this kind of Western hymn style and contrapuntal writing with chant and Hawaiian ways of constructing kauna and meaning into songs. Every day when she got flowers from her supporters, they had hidden little pieces of fabric in the flowers or wrapped them in the newspaper of the day and then wrapped that again so that people wouldn't notice that it was the current news. In this way, she was able to stay abreast of what was going on in the world and know if her people were safe. I'm really honored to be one of the Shift awardees this year in partnership with Te Ao Mana, which is a dance group based in New York City, but founded by leaders of Pacific heritage. And so what we were doing in partnering was just, they're so involved in the community and they're already doing so much in the community and connected to other Indigenous communities in the New York area. And so I wanted to bring them on because Tane, or Anthony Ayu, who's one of the co-founders of Te Ao Mana, is a really gorgeous dancer and choreographer. What we ended up submitting and what we will be doing for our Shift project is that Te Ao Mana will not just be the dancers for the opera with Tane doing the choreography, but they will also be a community partner, so that in the time leading up to the opera, there'll be free dance classes for the community, and there'll be different opportunities for community to come together, with the idea that leading up to the opera, we have these other community offerings so that the experimental opera at the end is the big party that the community gets to come to. She was able to write these songs that sounded like they were about the beautiful flowers or they were about a beloved person, but in fact they were through kauna, or the hidden meaning, expressing her love for her people. And she says in one of them that was published in a Hawaiian newspaper, you know, the one refrain of my heart is for the love of my people.
Shirley Snavy, ICT News. Indigenous women are breaking through in the tech industry, from virtual reality to language preservation. Meet two Indigenous women who are using code, culture, and creativity to build a future in tech on their own terms.
The tech industry is white-dominated, with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission reporting that more than 68% of the high-tech industry is comprised of white people. On the other hand, the report shows that less than 1% of high-tech jobs are held by Native Americans and Hawaiian and Pacific Islanders. One of the staggering things I discovered while making the story is seldomly are American Indian and Pacific Islander tech workers even tracked. In comes in two Yale students who are looking to change that. Kira Kaya, a native Hawaiian, was a product manager intern this summer at Microsoft. Madeline Gupta, enrolled citizen of Sault Ste. Marie tribe of Chippewa Indians, was an intern at Zillow, Google, and Apple during her college career. Both women see the position as a way to empower Native Americans and Pacific Islanders.
There's this Hawaiian word, and it's called kuleana, and it roughly translates to the word responsibility in English, but it's it has a deeper meaning in that it represents a reciprocal relationship of responsibility. And for me, I have felt responsibility from my family, my grandparents, my elders and ancestors. And for me, technology is really my way to pay back that responsibility.
It is really important to me to be inspiring younger Indigenous generations to be pursuing things like technology degrees, because it provides them with a lot of economic independence and also provides them with a way to help their community with this emerging tool of different kinds of technologies.
While balancing the internships with their personal life, they still find time to dedicate to projects which benefit their respective communities.
So I'm working with the Yale School of Medicine through their Pediatric Lab for Wellness in virtual reality, and the Aspen Institute with the Center for Native American Youth to put together a immersive virtual reality experience for Anishinaabe youth. So this experience will take people through Mackinac Island, which is known as a central place for gathering, trade, dancing, and celebrating community among Anishinaabe people. And it will show these landscapes as they would have been throughout pre-colonization and colonization, with stories about our time there, including creation stories of the land and stories of powerful Anishinaabe women and men that have lived there and their stories. And this experience intends to give Anishinaabe youth a look at land reclamation in a digital space and ask, what does it mean to present land ownership and identity using virtual reality? What kind of impacts can that have on youth health and identity?
In my spare time, I'm really passionate about combining, I guess, sort of my cultural background with technology. So some of the projects that I've worked on include a text extraction model called Pidgin, which is based on or inspired by the Hawaiian Pidgin language, and it takes in Hawaiian Pidgin phrases and is able to identify like what those phrases are talking about. For me, it's a lot about awareness. I think text extraction models already exist and are very commonly used. Like, for example, on your iPhone, a text extraction model is used to help identify like the next word or phrase that you might be typing in, as people are probably familiar with if they have some sort of smartphone. And for me, Hawaiian Pidgin is a language that is often stigmatized and seen as sort of, I guess, less than by others because it is like a Creole-based language that is kind of a combination of different languages. And for me, my family grew up speaking Pidgin. A lot of like my family speaks it very regularly. And I've obviously never agreed with sort of the sentiment that Hawaiian Pidgin is a less than language. And for me, creating this project was a lot about just recognizing that this language can take up space in the technology world and just increasing understanding and visibility of the language as a whole.
Due to the often rural location and funding of many tribes across the country, Native students lack the infrastructure like hardware, software, and broadband internet access to even take part in classes. Only 59% of Native students attend a school offering computer science classes. That's according to a report by the Kapler Foundation and ACES. And on reservation high schools, that number drops to 20%.
I think one of the number one things is that I would love to see resources for more tribal schools and schools with high populations of Indigenous students to be able to offer computer science classes. If I myself did not have free access to a computer science bootcamp, I wouldn't have even known it was something I was interested in. Computer science, I think, is often such an elusive thing. If you've never tried it, you might not even know what code looks like or what it actually means to be a software engineer. So it's really important that students are exposed to this at a young age, because I think many girls and non-female people would be really interested in it if they knew that it was something that was out there and existed.
While Indigenous people are nowhere near being represented accurately in the tech industry, Madeline says it will still propel them into the future.
Technology is one thing that I really believe sets Indigenous people into the future instead of the past. I believe in that United States and much of our educational systems, Indigenous people are often put into the past and given a very damage-centered narrative. Although we are taught about Indigenous people in public schools growing up, we're not often taught that we're still here, we're still thriving, and there's ongoing work in hundreds and hundreds of communities across the United States to maintain our wellness and maintain our independence. And so I believe technology is a tool that can be used to assert this future look for ourselves. It becomes a futurism for us to be able to place us into the tomorrow instead of just the yesterday.
For ICT News, Daniel Herrera Carbajal.
We are all children born of water. It is where all life begins. Water embraces and protects us. We revere it in our homes. We need to live close to water. It nourishes and cleanses us. All living things know this. Sometimes water is gentle and floats in the air. Sometimes water is harsh and powerful. Sometimes it catches the sun's rays. Water changes with the seasons, alive and always moving, even when no one is looking. Water is patient. Water endures. Water brings clarity. Water purifies our thoughts. Water brings us together. Water is holy. Water helps us heal. Water is medicine.
First foods really deserve their spotlight. It doesn't get enough credit for the value it brings to the earth, really. I am Chef Alexa Namkina Anderson, and we are in my new restaurant today called Javelina. Javelina was a pop-up that we've been doing for this past year, and I have been making a combination of Native American comfort foods, so stuff that you'd be finding at powwows. People really love the fry bread, so I wanted to give the people what they want. But then also really making dishes utilizing first foods. I want people to come into this and feel like this is their space too. So I'm trying to showcase it like with everything from the art on the walls to the blanket on the bench. There's just so many little things that I want people to feel familiar in this space. There's been so much support, and every time I think about it, it makes me very emotional, especially from the Native community. Like, we would not be where we're at without the Native community here in Portland and even in surrounding areas.
I've attended with my partner and friends various events that they've done around town. It's been exciting to watch as they've expanded their menu from the original powwow comfort food at those events into the various pop-ups that they produce. Now moving into this brick and mortar space, everything about their food has been great. Every time I've eaten it, and this was no exception.
Javelina has been this beautiful recognized brand for this past year. We started off doing like powwow comfort foods, but I didn't think it really captured what everything it was that I wanted to do. So we've switched it to Indigenous dining to just really represent an Indigenous person. For this menu, I am coming at you with the fry bread because people demand the fry breads. I will accommodate. But then I have like our bison chili. Bison's better for you. I have this really awesome rabbit and like fire roasted chili stew that I'm making. That really reminds me of my grandma.
Just so prideful for me to hear about the amazing work that they're doing and continue to do. And just inside reading the menu, my mouth was just drooling because it's our native foods on a menu. I'm not going to the store, I'm not making it at home myself. It's a restaurant and it's here finally, and I am so stoked.
I'm trying to incorporate all of these like first foods, but speckled into something that's highly approachable. For me, I'm doing this for like my daughter. I want her to grow up in a world where first foods are accessible to her. I want her to be able to go down to the corner restaurant and be like, I'm eating my people's food. The fact that we can't just do that blows my mind. So as hard as it's been, as exhausting as it's been, it's all for our people. I want people to try these things. I've noticed There's been times where people are like, that haven't grown up with these items, are like, what is that? I'm like, try it. It tastes kind of like braised beef. It's delicious. They're like, are you sure? I'm sure. I wouldn't serve you something that tastes bad. These dishes I am making are like really for the Native community. It's to represent Native people, Indigenous peoples. We are these people that are in the city, and then we're these people that will end up at the longhouse. And so sometimes that means fry bread, and then sometimes that means some rabbit and wild rice. I think one of the things that people say to me, not very often, but they're like, fry bread isn't Native. And I'm like, yes, they are not Indigenous ingredients, but it's still a part of the culture. I think that's really important for recognition and for healing. I can't ignore what history has provided for our people. I can just embrace all of that and move forward with pride and what we're able to make out of nothing.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.